Hey guys, it's Little Miss Wannabe Homesteader, and see this cutting board? Yes, it's awfully cute. I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these. This is one that I made for myself, Keith and Michelle. And today I'm going to be working on one that is going to be a wedding gift. So as you can see, I have 2 layers of paper here. One layer is the carbon paper. The other is the paper with my design that I printed off my printer. When you start tracing over your design so that the carbon paper leaves an imprint on your cutting board or wood, you want to make sure that you trace around the letter or design as perfectly as possible, as straight as possible, and push as hard as you can, because when we go to burn this design, we aren't just going to start in the middle burning. What we're going to do is we're going to use the burner and we're going to outline all of the letters, all of the design first, and then we'll come back and then we'll color it in. Make sure you tape it down really well so it doesn't move around. And when you get down to the smaller details, make sure you have a really pointy pencil. Now, some people don't use carbon paper. There are several transfer methods on Pinterest on how to transfer the design from the printed paper onto the board, but this is just how I do it with the carbon paper. I'm just kind of old school like that. I'm just about finished tracing. It's really scary because once you remove the paper and you see areas that you missed, it's really difficult to put the design back exactly where it was. So I kind of overdo it and trace and trace and trace and trace over and over again. And one of the things that you want to really be careful of is like the ends right here or in the little areas like this. Because if you don't have like consistent lines, then your design isn't going to come out looking like the design that you printed. So all these little areas are very important to your design. For example, the bottoms of the M's right here. If I end up tracing them in a square shape, they're not going to be consistent with the rest of the letters. So I'm just going to go over it probably 10 more times. And then I will be peeling the papers off and seeing what we got. You want to be careful when you take your design off in case you need to reapply it. Getting a little peek underneath. Oops. Voila. So it actually turned out pretty good. So next I'm going to get my wood burner plugged in and get it heated up. I have several different ones that I use. This is the tip that I like. And then when I color it in, I could use a fatter tip. But this is the one I used for tracing. So when I outline the numbers down here, because they're so fine, I'm going to use a smaller tip. So you just kind of have to play around with the tips and find out which ones you like best. Before you start a project like this, you might want to get like a piece of palette wood and draw a design on it and just practice before you start on a wedding gift. While my wood burner's heating up, I want to talk about wood. Now this is a hardwood and it was difficult to burn. Today I'm using bamboo, and this is a very soft wood. You really have to make sure that you do not apply pressure, especially when you lift your burner and set it down. Out of habit, we'll press down when we start burning again. So you'll find little holes all over your design if you do that. So always start off with light pressure. If it's a harder wood, you will see that you need to apply more pressure. Okay, so my wood burner is heated up. And I can tell it's warm enough because if I just put my fingers near it, I could feel the heat. And I'm going to start just by outlining. And again, we're not going to apply pressure. And something else I do is I keep the design close by, facing up, because right here on the top of the F, it kind of dips down. But if I look at the original design, it does not dip down. So this point right here didn't get traced very well. So now that I see that, I will just make my own line. When you're outlining the letters, make sure that you keep the burner moving, because if you slow down, you see that darker spot right here? I'm not sure if you can see that on camera, but I slowed down right there so it went deeper, and you don't want to do that. So keep moving and only apply light pressure. Okay, so I just finished doing the initial outline. I didn't do the smaller areas yet. I'm just gonna work on this first and then I'll come back and do these. And while I was doing the outline, my wrist rubbed off some of the ink on the date. So what I did is I just took my pencil and I went over it so I didn't lose that design. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start coloring a little and continue on smoothing out the outline. One thing I have to say is when you do something intricate like this, you do have to have a steady hand. You can't have a shaky hand, otherwise none of the lines will be straight and it's gonna come out looking messy. If you do have a shaky hand, then I would recommend that you just do a freehand design, and that way it's not so formal, and it's okay if it doesn't look perfect because the beauty, Tansy, because the beauty is in the imperfections. But for this particular gift, I opted out of going freehand and doing a design so it looked very clean and consistent. Okay, so I got my first letter shaded in. And there's actually several areas that I needed to refer to the original design for. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you don't tear that original design and that you keep it. So there's the first letter. And what I'm doing is I'm just gently coloring in very small areas at a time. You just need to be patient. Don't rush it, because if you rush it, you'll see it in the overall appearance of your project. Because of the grain, there will be darker and lighter areas, and that just adds to the character of your project. Make sure when you're burning that you stay in the same direction. So I'm going up and down. I'm not gonna wanna go side to side because you'll see the difference. It'll change the design and it won't look uniform. The wood is really hard right here. If you could see, there's a lot of grain, so it's a bit harder to burn. Just kind of have to keep going over it lightly. Okay, so I got the majority of the larger design filled in. There are some areas I need to go back over and like straighten out the lines. Like if you look over here on the S, it's kind of bumpy in some areas. It doesn't look very smooth and fluid. So I'm going to come back later and I'm just going to straighten that out. Sometimes your tip will become loose, so just have a pair of pliers nearby so that you could tighten it. Okay guys, I'm all done. There you have it. The date was a little bit difficult to do, but I just did my best and it still turned out good. All I have to do is oil it and I'm all done. There's a beautiful handcrafted wedding gift ready to go. Hope you enjoyed this video and don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day. Thanks guys.